Are you ready to dive into this chapter, Matthew 27? And I have been trying to prep for this one. I'm hoping to try to rein in my tears because every time I go through this story, I cry. So I'm trying to at least get under control for the sake of telling you the story. But also, before we get in, so on a happy note, the teas are now in the shop. So we have Be Still and Know and Fruit of the Spirit. These are now both ready in the shop, and you can get those. The Fruit of the Spirit is really great summer tea, and I will be telling the stories of each one of these, so I won't take up the time here, but each one has a story. So be sure you're following me on the Shavamade Instagram page or Facebook, and you can get a little bit more information about each of these as we launch these. And we will also have one tea each week. So a new tea each week. So now that that's out of the way, let's dive into this chapter. I'm going to break it up a little bit more, so hopefully it'll be easier to kind of take in each part. So Matthew 27, we're going to go through verse 1 through 10. Early in the morning, all the chief priests and the elders of the people came to the decision to put Jesus to death. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate the governor. When Judas, who had betrayed him, saw that Jesus was condemned, he was seized with remorse and returned the 30 silver coins to the chief priests and the elders. I have sinned, he said, for I have betrayed innocent blood. What is that to us? They replied. That's your responsibility. So Judas threw the money into the temple and left. Then he went away and hanged himself. The chief priest picked up the coins and said, It is against the law to put this into the treasury, since it is blood money. So they decided to use the money to buy the potter's field as a burial place for foreigners. That is why it has been called the field of blood to this day. Then what was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled. They took the 30 silver coins, the price set on him by the people of Israel, and they used them to buy the potter's field as the Lord commanded me. Okay, so there's a few little notes on this one. Not super deep, but when it's talking about then what was spoken by Jeremiah, it may have been referring to the group of prophets, because it's not actually just Jeremiah makes a little bit of a mention of it in Jeremiah 19, 1 through 13. You can read that. It dives a little bit more into what was to come afterwards, specifically with Jerusalem, that took place after Jesus' death in 70 AD. So that talks a little bit more there. But in Zechariah 11:12, that's where it's more specific, which we've already read before, but we'll read it again. And I told them, if you think it best, give me my pay, but if not, keep it. So they paid me 30 pieces of silver. And the Lord said to me, throw it to the potter, the handsome price at which they priced me. So I took the 30 pieces of silver and threw them into the house of the Lord to the potter. Okay, and so this is that reference that we talked about before, is that this money they couldn't use, put back into the temple, so they use it to buy a potter's field, and that's what Zechariah is talking about. The passage in Jeremiah we can look at briefly, but it says, let's see, it's 1 through 13, and it goes through all of this. Okay, in verse 1 it says, this is what the Lord says, go and buy a clay pot jar from a potter, take along some of the elders of the people and the priests, and go out to the valley of Ben Hinnom, near the entrance of the potsherd gate. There proclaim the words I tell you. Skip a little bit. I'm going to bring a disaster on this place that will make the ears of everyone who hears of it tingle. For they have forsaken me and made this place of foreign gods. They have burned sacrifices in it to gods that neither they nor their fathers nor the kings of Judah ever knew, and they have filled this place with the blood of the innocent. Yeah, of course, Jesus, his blood was innocent. So beware, this is in verse 6, so beware the days are coming, declares the Lord, when people will no longer call this place Topheth or the valley of Ben Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. And it continues on into a little bit more understanding of what takes place later in history. So that's kind of the background on that passage. Now, the other part is that this is all taking place. So when Judas goes to the chief priests and elders, this is just a few hours after he's betrayed Jesus. So he's betrayed him, but after he sees that Jesus is actually condemned, he's filled with remorse. He immediately goes before them. So this is very, very shortly after. This isn't hours and hours. This is within a short amount of time that Jesus is betrayed and then feels their remorse. And Acts 1:18 actually gives a little bit more details as to what happened. With the reward he got for his wickedness, Judas bought a field. There he fell headlong. His body burst open and all his intestines spilled out. It's not very, very gory. Everyone in Jerusalem heard about this, so they called that field in their language Akeldama. That is field of blood. Now, the understanding in the history tradition says that he did hang himself, but when he hung himself, he fell, and that's what caused his body to burst. So that's it is both. Now, here's another understanding is it says early in the morning, all the chief priests and the elders of the people came to the decision to put Jesus to death. So this is just the elders and the chief priests. The other people here that are part of coming in for the Passover, they don't know about this. This is being hidden, and they are trying to do this without stirring up the crowd, because if they do, the people will probably revolt because they're afraid. Jesus is a rebel rouser apparently, so you don't want to stir up the people. And there was enough people that still followed Jesus. So this is trying to be in secret. This is again why it's at night. Again why they're trying to get this all done very quick. And at Caiaphas' house, and then of course they end up taking him, which we talked about. They take him to Pilate. So the picture that we often get is that it was everybody that was there for the Passover. No, it wasn't. There were many that they were trying to do this secretly and take care of this privately, and then kill him, so that way it would make an example to all those that were there for the Passover, that they wanted to set as an example as they were on the highway back home, which we will get to a little bit more understanding very shortly here. So that's pretty much just to kind of go over all of that background as to what's taking place here. But also just understanding what happened with Judas is that he allowed whatever, it was jealousy or envy or root of the money, the hunger for money, and realizing that he wasn't going to get what he thought he was going to get. Because that's what started this whole thing for him. Because when Mary broke the alabaster box in front of Jesus' feet, Judas got upset. And when he got upset, that's what was the domino effect for him. That something was triggered to make him want to go and betray Jesus. So his heart was set on money and what it could get him. And when he realized that was not Jesus' end goal was not to build up a kingdom of wealth, Judas was not wanting to be a part of that. And it set him on the course that led him to this place. But then when he did, because Satan entered him, he allowed that door, that gate to be opened through that desire for wealth, that greed. And when that was opened, then he began to do all sorts of other evil things. But then he finally had a moment of understanding of what he had done. And that remorse just hit him hard when he saw that because of his actions, Jesus was condemned. And maybe he didn't think Jesus was going to be condemned. Maybe he thought he was just angry and upset, and they were just going to have a trial and maybe shut him up or something. But whatever it was, he was all of a sudden overwhelmed with this guilt. And later on we get to with Peter, and both of them struggle with guilt and remorse. But because of the difference of the relationship, that Judas's relationship was never really close to God. He never had a heart for Jesus. He was just there and part of the number, a part of the disciples, but he was never really truly part of that relationship with Jesus. He never allowed himself to have that same heart that Jesus had. So because of that, his only recourse was to commit suicide in his mind. Whereas Peter, because of that relationship with Jesus and because his heart was being transformed in that process of being close to Jesus, then he felt the guilt, but he wanted to change and he wanted to be forgiven. So that was the difference. And Peter was able to be forgiven. He went to Jesus. He ran to Jesus rather than away from Jesus. Okay, so let's pick up tomorrow into the next part.